Okay, so for today's video, we're going to be talking about pulmonary ventilation. Pulmonary ventilation is basically the process of breathing, which is the movement of air into and out of the lungs to facilitate the gas exchange. There's two phases of pulmonary ventilation. There's the inhalation, or inspiration, also known as, where air is entering the lungs. So you inhale and the air is filling up your lungs, and then there's expiration or exhalation when you breathe out and air leaves your lungs. And this process is driven by pressure changes caused by the contraction and relaxation of respiratory muscles, such as the diaphragm and the intercostal muscles, right? And it's essential for a supply of oxygen and the removal of carbon dioxide. So for the exercise today, we're going to be talking about swimming laps. So swimming laps, like going down and back and down and back and down and back. Now you might think it's not very, doesn't really fit, I guess, because it's water and we're talking about air. However, it does, because when you're swimming, you need to hold your breath for a long period of time. So you inhale or inspire, you inhale the air and as you're swimming, and then that pressure builds up inside your lungs and you have to let it out. So that's when you come up for air and you breathe out and then breathe more air back in so you can keep swimming, right? So this causes pulmonary ventilation because they increase the body's demand for oxygen and the production of carbon dioxide, which the lungs must work to exchange oxygen and carbon dioxide in the body. You want oxygen in and carbon dioxide out. So this is achieved by increasing the rate and depth of breathing. So just, breathing it out. All right, so today we're going to be talking about the generation of hydrogen ions during exercise. So hydrogen ions are generated during exercise primarily from the breakdown of ATP, from anaerobic glycolysis, which is production of lactate, and then from aerobic metabolism, which is the production of carbon dioxide, right? So high intensity anaerobic exercises generate significant amounts of hydrogen ions due to increased metabolic activity in the muscle cells. So the production of, the primary reason is the production of lactic acid. So, because lactic acid dissociates into lactate and hydrogen ions, as we have learned. And as a byproduct of this, energy production without sufficient oxygen is the byproduct. So the exercise for today is sprints in general. So 40-yard dash, 100-meter sprint, and 60-meter sprint, things like that. When you're doing that, your muscles demand ATP, right? So your body switches to anaerobic metabolism, such as glycolysis, to get the ATP. And so you have your glucose breakdown, and then you have your pyruvate conversion, when you convert from pyruvate to lactate using LDH, and then the dissociation, and then that creates the accumulation of these hydrogen ions. Okay, in this video, we're going to be talking about the overload principle. So the overload principle basically states that in order to improve, as far as like weightlifting goes, and in order to get stronger, your body must constantly be challenged with greater work than it's used to. So overloading your muscles. So the exercises that we're going to be talking about today: bench press, overhead press, and dumbbell curls. What we're going to be doing is we're going to be overloading these exercises more than what they're generally used to, right? So bench press, if you're usually like a 120-pound bench press, I know it's pretty light, but if you're usually 120-pound bench press, we're going to try to overload that, because you can't get better if you keep, lifting that 120, right? If you keep bench pressing that 120, you're going to stay at that, plateau, right? So you have to increase the weight to get better and be able to do heavier weight. So if you're bench pressing 120, kick it up 5 pounds. Then when you get comfortable with that, kick it up another 5 pounds. Kick it up another 5 pounds. And that's the same with overhead press and dumbbell curl, right? With certain exercises, you might be able to increase it more than 5 pounds. With some, you might be able to only increase it 2.5. With some, 5 might be right. So you know, are able to pick your poison. So these exercises use the overload principle by gradually increasing the demand on your body. So gradually increasing the weight or increasing the reps that you do with that weight, or increasing the sets that you do with a certain weight, or improving your technique. Improving your technique has a lot to do with how you lift, you know? So this is necessary. The overload principle is necessary because it forces the muscles and cardiovascular system to adapt to these changes, leading to gain in strength, growth of your muscle, and improved endurance in these certain, workouts. Now, it doesn't have to be these specific ones I listed all the time, but just for this workout regimen it is. But all the time, it doesn't have to be these specific ones. And so without, using the overload principle, your body would adapt to whatever weight you just keep using, and, it will plateau. You would stay at the same place forever.